"Mom, I can't carry you anymore." Those words gutted me. Snow fell outside as my son Adrian stood in the doorway, anger flickering in his eyes. My suitcase sat at my feet. I'd told him I lost my job 2 days before New Year, hoping for comfort. Instead, he looked at me like a burden. "You've been living off me for months," he said coldly. "Maybe it's time you stand on your own." He didn't meet my eyes when he shut the door. The lock clicked. That small sound hurt more than his words. The wind bit through my coat as I stood in the hallway, but the real cold came from inside my chest. I'd raised him alone after his father died. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, and this was my reward. Behind me, neighbors' laughter spilled through walls, celebrating beginnings while I faced an ending I never saw coming. The streets glittered with New Year lights, gold strands on lampposts, champagne bottles and windows. Couples walked arm in arm. Families bundled against the cold. Everyone celebrating except me. My son's words echoed, burden. Always needing help. Can't carry you anymore. I'd sacrificed everything so Adrian could chase his dreams. This was my reward, abandoned on New Year's Eve because I'd lost a job. I walked until my legs ached, ending at an old diner that smelled like burnt coffee and fried eggs. A tired waitress handed me a free cup without asking, pity in her weathered eyes. "Rough night, honey?" I smiled weakly. She didn't know I could buy her entire diner. Could buy the whole street. But that wasn't my secret to use. Not yet. That night, I rented a room at the Riverside Motel, a rundown place where the neon sign flickered and the room smelled like stale cigarettes masked with chemical air freshener. Peeling wallpaper showed water stains. The heater hummed but barely produced warmth. It reminded me of when Adrian was little, when we'd lived in a place just like this. Back then, we had nothing but love. We'd made blanket forts and pretended we were camping. We'd been happy. Now I had everything except him. I stared at my reflection, a 53-year-old woman with graying hair and tired eyes. I looked exactly like what Adrian thought I was, a failure. A burden. I whispered into the dim light, "You'll see, Adrian." Not out of spite, but so you understand. He thought losing a job meant losing worth. He had no idea his mother had been quietly building something much greater. 5 years earlier, I'd co-founded Harper & Wade Innovations with my late husband Thomas. We'd started in our garage with nothing but a patent for energy-efficient cooling systems and a dream. After Thomas died suddenly, our partner Daniel Wade offered me a generous settlement to buy out my shares. "You're not equipped to run a tech company alone," he'd said with practiced sympathy. Everyone thought I'd walked away broke. But I'd kept 15% of the company, hidden in a trust, protected by lawyers Thomas had insisted we hire. Over 5 years, I'd watched those dividends compound. Used them to invest in real estate, green energy startups, tech companies. Built a quiet empire under a trust called TS Holdings. No one, not even Adrian, knew. Because money was never the point. Respect was. Teaching my son values was. Now, sitting in this motel room, it was time for the lesson to begin. 3 days later, my phone rang. Adrian's name flashed on the screen. "Mom?" His voice trembled. I shouldn't have reacted that way. Maybe I overreacted. I swallowed the ache. "It's fine, sweetheart. You said what you felt. I'm under a lot of pressure. Work's been intense. I took it out on you." I almost laughed. Almost told him he worked for Harper & Wade, the company I'd helped build. That his demanding boss ultimately answered to shareholders like me. But it wasn't time. Not until he learned humility. "Take care of yourself, Adrian," I said softly. "You're going to need your strength." I saw him at my sister-in-law Patricia's New Year dinner. Adrian avoided me all evening. When his girlfriend Natalie asked, "Why doesn't your mom work?" he flinched. "She's figuring things out," he said dismissively. Career transition. Her glance, pity mixed with disdain, burned hotter than any insult. I watched him toast to new beginnings with expensive champagne, laughter filling the room. My heart cracked, not from rejection, but from knowing I'd raised him to value the wrong things. He saw money as power. Soon, he'd see the truth as an empire. The next week, I went job hunting. Every rejection email stung. Then I found an article, Harper & Wade celebrates record profits. I checked my portfolio. My 15% stake had grown exponentially. My net worth, $47 million. While I applied for positions paying $35,000 annually, I was wealthier than every HR manager rejecting me. The irony tasted bittersweet. Sometimes silence isn't a weakness. It's a strategy. 2 weeks later, Adrian called, voice electric with excitement. "Mom, I got promoted. I'm now a team lead at Harper & Wade." My breath caught. Of all companies, Harper & Wade. The company Thomas and I had built. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I managed. He talked for 10 minutes about bonuses and goals. Never asked about me. After the call, I checked my shareholder dashboard. His division's budget approval, signed off by my trust. He was working for me and didn't even know it. 3 weeks after Adrian kicked me out, Daniel Wade's assistant called. "Miss Sterling? Mr. Wade would like to invite you to Harper & Wade's annual Investors Gala. As a significant stakeholder, we'd be honored by your presence." Daniel didn't know Adrian worked there. Didn't know inviting me would bring two worlds colliding. I almost declined. Then I thought of Adrian's cold eyes on New Year's Eve. Of Natalie's pitying glance. "I'll attend," I said. It was time for worlds to collide. I bought a simple black gown. No jewelry except Thomas's wedding ring. No elaborate styling. The night of the gala, I walked into the Grand Waterstone Hotel. When Daniel saw me, his champagne glass stopped midway to his mouth. "You're still on the investor list?" I smiled calmly. "I've always been on the investor list. 15%. Remember?" The room paused. Heads turned. Whispers started. Power doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It arrives quietly, reclaiming thrones that were always rightfully its own. Across the ballroom, Adrian stood with his team, laughing. He hadn't noticed me yet. Then Daniel clinked his glass. The spotlight illuminated the stage. "Before we enjoy this evening, I want to honor our founding visionaries." A screen showed a photo from 15 years ago, Thomas and me in our garage, holding our first patent. Thomas Sterling, who we lost too soon. And his wife and co-founder, Catherine Sterling. My name echoed through the ballroom. Adrian's head snapped toward the stage. His eyes found the photo, then scanned frantically until they landed on me. Our eyes met. I smiled softly. For the first time in his adult life, my son didn't know what to say. Adrian found me on the terrace. "Why didn't you tell me?" he demanded, voice shaking. "You let me think you were just, you never said you founded this company. Would it have changed how you treated me?" He opened his mouth. No words came. "If I'd told you I was rich, would you have still kicked me out? Or would you have suddenly cared, not because I deserved love, but because I had money? That's not fair. Isn't it? You judged me based on what I could provide. When you thought I was broke, I became a burden. Now that you know I'm a founding shareholder, suddenly I'm worth speaking to. See the problem?" His silence was louder than any apology. By morning, the story spread everywhere. Former Harper & Wade co-founder re-emerges at gala. Adrian's co-workers connected dots. Whispers followed him at work. "Did you know your mom was loaded? Why doesn't she give you money? Your mom is basically our boss's boss." Adrian called 3 times. I let each go to voicemail. Not to punish him, but to let him sit with discomfort, to feel what it's like when people judge you based on assumptions. By afternoon, headlines shifted. Why did Harper & Wade's co-founder disappear? I hadn't exposed Adrian. But truth had exposed itself. Karma, when patient, doesn't miss. A week later, Adrian called, voice raw. People think I used your name to get hired. They're questioning every decision I've made. My boss is recommending I be moved to a different division. Everything I worked for, gone. I felt a maternal instinct urging me to fix it. But I pushed it down. Maybe it's time you earn things on your own, I said gently. Not through anyone's name. Just through your actual work, character, ability. How, when everyone's judging me? The same way I did after your father died. After Daniel tried to push me out. After you kicked me out. You prove them wrong with actions. With consistency. With humility. He cried softly. I just wanted to make you proud. You still can. But first, understand that making someone proud isn't about titles. It's about being someone worth being proud of. 2 weeks later, Daniel called. Catherine, I'd like you to visit the office. There's something I want to show you. The lobby still had the original brick wall with founders' names etched in bronze. A young intern approached reverently. Miss Sterling? You're the legend they talk about. The engineer who could see 5 years ahead. Daniel appeared. You built the foundation. Everything we are rests on what you and Thomas created. I thought of Adrian, of how truth decorates no lies. Daniel made an offer. We need you back as a consultant. The company needs your vision. I'll consult, I said. But Adrian can never know. He needs to rebuild his reputation without knowing I'm still signing checks that fund his division. That seems harsh. Power used wisely isn't vengeance. It's education. My son needs to learn that success comes from character, not connections. I signed the agreement that afternoon. In my motel room, I looked at my reflection and whispered, you did it. Not the money. Not the title. What I'd done was create opportunities for growth. Adrian's pride was cracking. Through those cracks, empathy was beginning to shine. Outside, city lights glittered. Somewhere in those lights, Adrian was figuring out who he wanted to be. 3 weeks later, someone knocked on my door. Adrian stood in the rain, soaked, eyes hollow. Why are you still living here? You have millions. Because I don't need a mansion to know my worth. He sat on my bed, dripping. I've messed everything up. Natalie left. My coworkers don't trust me. My boss is waiting for me to fail. Tell me what you've learned. He thought for a long moment. That I judged you because I thought success was money. That I valued you based on what you could provide rather than who you are. And now? Now I see character matters more than career. That kindness is harder than cruelty. I put my arm around him. You start with honesty. You admit when you're wrong. You do the right thing even when it costs you. We talked until dawn. About Thomas, grief, pressure, failures, forgiveness. I should have asked what happened instead of judging, Adrian said. I should have been honest about my financial situation, I admitted. As he left, I stopped him. I'm starting a mentorship program at Harper & Wade. For young professionals who want to learn integrity. I think you should apply. Not because you're my son. But because you're someone who's made mistakes and wants to learn. Those make the best leaders. The mentorship program launched 6 weeks later. Adrian was among 12 participants, accepted on merit after an interview process I'd designed. Adrian thrived. Started asking questions instead of giving orders. Started listening. Started admitting when he didn't know something. His colleagues noticed. Sterling's different lately. More thoughtful. He didn't know his program director was his mother. Until one afternoon in month 4, when I stepped into the boardroom to congratulate participants. The look on Adrian's face, shock melting into understanding, was worth everything. That's the real lesson, I said, looking at him. Growth without grace means nothing. Success without character is hollow. At the next all-hands meeting, Daniel announced, we're bringing back one of our founders, Catherine Sterling, as our Chief Innovation Officer." The applause was thunderous. And in the crowd, I saw Adrian. He wasn't just clapping, he was standing taller than everyone, applauding harder than anyone, tears streaming. After the meeting, he found me. "Mom, I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Forgiveness isn't earned," I said. "It's given freely. But trust has to be rebuilt, action by action. I'll rebuild it. However long it takes." "I know you will." A year later, we sat on my balcony watching New Year's fireworks. The same city, same holiday, but everything was different. "Mom," Adrian said, "I used to think you were weak. That vulnerability was a failure. And now? Now I know you were just kind. That kindness is harder than arrogance. That the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall, they're the ones who fall and get back up." I reached for his hand. "You couldn't carry me that night. Not because I was too heavy, but because I was never yours to carry. I just wanted you to care enough to offer." I get that now. Growth is never too late. Later, I pulled out a letter I'd written months ago in the motel room. "Catherine, if you're reading this, something shifted. Remember, betrayal isn't always about enemies. Sometimes it comes from people we love, confused about what matters. Your job isn't to make him pay. It's to show him a different way to see the world. The secret wasn't money. It was patience." I folded it carefully, placed it with Thomas's ring. The mentorship program became permanent. Expanded. I spoke at conferences about leadership and humility. But the best moments were private, Adrian helping a struggling analyst, calling just to ask how I was doing, measuring worth by character instead of bank accounts. That was the real victory. Watching my son transform from someone who judged worth by money to someone who measured it by character. Looking back, what looked like betrayal was a breakthrough. When my son kicked me out, he thought he was discarding weakness. He couldn't see he was rejecting wisdom. But I couldn't see clearly either. I'd thought my secret, the money, the empire, was my shield. It took losing everything to realize my worth was never in my bank account. It was in my character, my resilience, my ability to love my son even when he couldn't love me back. The real secret wasn't $47 million. It was patience. Knowledge that transformation takes time, that people can change, that love sometimes means letting someone hit bottom so they can learn to climb. The betrayal blueprint isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. About believing in who someone could become, even when they've forgotten themselves. That New Year's Eve when my son closed the door, I thought my world was ending. I didn't know it was beginning, for both of us. Sometimes the greatest gift is being underestimated. It gives you room to grow in ways no one expects, to prove that strength isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise. My secret wasn't wealth. It was wisdom. And wisdom can't be stolen or spent. It can only be shared. Adrian finally learned, the most valuable thing a person can possess isn't in any bank account. It's in their character. Their kindness. Their ability to see people as human beings. And that's a secret worth keeping, until the moment it's worth revealing.